There it is, Sunday Night Teacher Talk. Not alone.
Back again.
You haven't been on for 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's been fun. It's been a fun time. So I'll get into that in just a second. But thank you so much for everyone for being here. I'm so glad to be able to do this. It is Sunday, and if you've not been here yesterday or before this, what this is simply us trying to help one another to get ready for, if you're in the States, school on Tuesday, because it is Veterans Day weekend. So a lot of you have off on Monday. A lot of people had off on Friday too. When we were kids, we did not have a 4-day weekend for Veterans Day. Why?
Is that just our kids?
No, a lot of people do.
Oh.
So when I was in New York yesterday, they had off as well. So if anyone, why am I frozen? There it is. As we're jumping into this, anyone that was at I did a workshop yesterday, a full day of PD at Ogdensburg School District, which is about 2 hours from Syracuse. It's like right on the Canadian border. Yesterday, it was awesome. Like it was not only was the first time I ever had a dressing room ever, and no stakes, anyone. Like if you want me to come to your school, I don't need a dressing room, but it was pretty cool. Everyone was so great, man. I got so many good messages afterwards, and it really, every once in a while you get a gig that's really reaffirming of the work that you feel like you're supposed to be doing. And yesterday was that, or 2 days ago was that.
Awesome.
Yesterday was 16 hours of travel to get home because Denver was like a disaster. So do you want to explain real quick, like, that you're all right, or that you're not, you're alive?
I'm alive. Yeah, I've been good. I've had all kinds of weird symptoms happening. Like there's this weird thing called erytheum nodosum, which is like looks like bruises all over your legs, and they like are really painful. Just like body aches and chills, which would assume that I'm having an infection, but I didn't really have a fever to go along with that. Like just lots of weird stuff. But it all comes down to like my like white blood cell count was crazy it's crazy. It's still crazy. And I have like super signs of inflation and inflammation, and it's like my body's kind of attacking itself, and we're trying to figure that out, but it seems food related. Like yeah, and I tested positive for rheumatoid arthritis, which is really strange because I don't have any other symptoms of RA, and I'm 45, and I eat pretty healthy. I can count on like, it's so funny. The doctor's like, no, it's inflammation related, and I'm like, how? Gluten, but
that was aggressive.
It was gluten, but I've eaten 5 pieces of gluten in the month of October. So I don't know. We're still figuring it out, but yes, Lopez, could it be lupus? I feel like I'm on a House episode because in House they were always like,
House.
It could be lupus.
It was always lupus.
Yeah, so I had tested positive for one of the tests. I'm waiting for the other half of my blood work to come back. So we'll see, but prayers are welcomed if that's your jam. I'm just trying to figure it out and eat super, super clean, but I did eat Chick-fil-A French fries after picking him up on the way home.
16 hours in the airport. I was starving, and that was the closest thing to us. So,
and I couldn't help myself. They just smell so delicious.
That's a question. I don't know if anyone knows. Like, I am really trying to figure out how do you stay healthy. I eat really clean.
Our house does.
It's like vegetables and protein. And then when you go to the airport, it's like, unless you want to spend $100 on a meal, I don't really know what to do. So yeah. Anyway, I gotta ask Adam, welcome that. You have any questions?
You got one. Bruce is on here. He said, hi, my Sigma Skibbity Rizzlers.
Oh, so Bruce is our daughter's friend.
Hanging out online.
And he lives in Illinois, and that's all I'll say. But I am going to be near where he lives in March for a talk, and I keep telling him that I'm going to come over for dinner. And Marley said it's freaking him out. I should stop saying it. I said, "Oh, it's working."
They're probably listening because that's how I hear them laughing.
I'm going to keep saying it. So yeah, I'm coming over, Bruce. I hear Marley's door opening. I feel like she's going to pop in or something.
Okay, just Lopez asking, is asking, what foods or items would you like if you were given a private dressing room?
Now, Lopez, here's the thing. If I could eat anything I want, it would be like Sour Patch Kids or some kind of garbage like that. Or back east, we had Tasty
Junk
Cakes. I
food.
love a delicious Tasty Cake. I have not found any decent pizza here in New Mexico, but really, I probably should just eat like protein. That's what I should just be ingesting all the time.
That's not really dressing room like snacks. You take some
Yeah.
dressing room snacks. I'm gonna answer for you. You take some siete queso chips.
Oh,
That's CJ's
man.
favorite
I don't know if anyone's into
grain-free
these.
snack.
Siete chips, queso, which we call Curioso chips just to drive people crazy. But I do anyway. They are, oh man, they are the jam.
Mhm.
And I would love to have my new drink of choice is Topo Chico, but they make you burp too much. You can't have those in public.
Well, that's why it's in the dressing room.
It's the people would still hear you, and they would carry over.
It is
like once you
like
start
the
moving,
most
it starts making noise.
fizzy, like carbonated.
I've never burped as much.
It does.
Here, where did this show take a turn for the worst? I've never burped as much in my life until I drank Topo Chico.
This is true.
Not
All right.
soda, not beer, not anything.
You ready for a real question?
Yeah, hit it.
Tristan is up asking, a few students lied about handing in their notes into a sub and then saying they got lost. What strategy would you use to confront them about this?
So the first time it happens, it's not a big deal, right? Like it is, okay, just it's fine. Get them back to me. The second time, so now going forward, what I would do is when I have subs, I make everything due by the end of the day. The kids are never allowed to hold on to anything. The subs get everything. I then leave detailed notes. So the sub knows to take the notes, they put a paper clip on it, and I leave a label. Like, I don't even want you to get your own Post-it note. Here's a label, put it on there. First period, it goes in the folder. The end. Then there's no getting lost. It's not like subs are walking around with work. Where would they lose it to? So it is making sure that that's the deal. Or I will have a student that's in my class that is in charge of that. So when I'm out, I find a trusted student and they organize it. The sub can still collect it, but then the student will organize it, make sure that everything goes where it goes. Sometimes I have them alphabetize them even. But then if a kid doesn't have it, it's a wrap. I got nothing for you because, this is an adult we're dealing with. I'm sure they didn't just lose it. And I note that it's so funny that this happened last time. So I'll say this to kids, like I'm mindful of the fact that it got lost again. But if it's one assignment, you really have to think that assignment is not enough that it's going to sink a student's grade or it's going to make a student pass for the year. They're not really, sometimes when we think kids are getting away with something, it's like, what are you really getting away with? And I have to detach from the fact that you're getting away with anything, but it's like, instead of you feeling like you snuck out with it, I just go, oh, it's fine. I don't really even care. And then we move on with life. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer.
I like that. It's about grace. Like your first one's like, I'm going to give you some grace in this.
And I don't say anything about it. I don't make a big deal.
But you don't tell them that you're doing that. Like it's like a you get one free kind of a thing.
Not always. It's like, because I don't need them to know. Right? I don't need them to know that it's a kindness.
Let them know when it's the second time and you're getting them.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting, Bryce. This happened again. Seems that it happened last time. Stuff like that. Or I make what we're doing something they can turn in online. So they have to email it to me, or it's in Google Classroom, or even if you don't use things like Google Classroom normally, if they can submit it online, then that's what I'll have them do as well. So then it's done, and I get it, and there's no you can't it's not like when I feel like when emails first came out, we could say things to professors like I don't know, I emailed it to you, I don't know what happened. It's like, bro, what world do you live in?
Sometimes tech is still fallible that one
yeah
works.
But there's always you can always trace it back.
You can.
I feel like there's no, like, even in Google Docs, all of a sudden when it just populates with the answer, it's like a lot of teachers don't know that you can see like the history of the
Yeah.
work that was done and when things were added in. And it's like, oh, a whole paper showed up in exactly 1 second. Then
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah. Ruth Akers just said online submissions are great because it's time stamped.
Yeah.
So true. Tristan also followed up and said, I reached out to the sub and I know that he didn't collect the notes. The fact that they were missing was strange because I got the assignments that the kids did.
So one of the things, Tristan, is that one, we have to remember that sometimes subs care. Sometimes they really want to be there. So I think this week probably I will start subbing at my kids' school. Right, this is my new adventure, and mostly because I'm curious what's going on over, like, how the day kind of runs. Two, I just
you can't help yourself.
I can't help. I just, like, last year I like volunteered to observe teachers at my daughter's school. This year, what's my in is
they
doing.
need substitutes. Like,
yeah.
So
they reached out, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Subs sometimes are like former teachers, or they want to be teachers and they take it seriously. Other times it's like, look, I'm getting paid like $100 a day or whatever it is to just sit here. I don't care what y'all are doing. Like, just turn it in, right? I've seen both. But even the ones that are good, you have to think of how many different schools, how many different classrooms they go to, and how many different, it's like, ways do teachers have for them to do something. That's why I make it super simple. It's like, follow these exact rules. So when you come in, I don't want you to teach anything. If I know I'm going to be out, I have the agenda on the board. If I don't, I have everything in the directions of the students. The sub doesn't have to do anything. I found that when you get sneaky stuff like this, when you have a bunch of handouts for a sub to give it out, someone will steal them. So now the sub doesn't know where the handouts are, right? Yeah. It's like a take one Halloween basket, and then it's just like, nope. No, we don't know where they are. Kids hide them. They all cheat anyway. It's not, so I'm not trying to push kids hard on a day like that. I make the lesson that I'm doing fit the amount of time that the students have in class. They tell them that they have to work quietly. It's due at the end of the period with no exceptions. And if you were somewhere else, like, get the nurse to send me a note, or the principal to send me a note, or something like that if you were out of class. But that's it. And then I make the submission process as foolproof as possible, so I don't have to worry about it. It'd be interesting to see subbing because if teachers aren't organized too, it's like, you're going to be organized for me.
I really hope that subbing sheds a new light and some ideas on like what for new videos, because we get a lot of requests for different videos that you don't necessarily, it's like, what would I say about that? Like, there's only so much you can say about it until you walk in the shoes, and it's been so long since you've
such a different school from what I come from too, where I come from, inner city Philadelphia, and now I'm teaching like small rural private school.
So I'm excited to see if that spawns any new content for folks.
We'll see.
They'll like that too. Okay, Faith is up next saying, thank you for your videos. I'm interviewing for my first teaching position this week. Do you have any advice for those who went to school for something other than education?
Yes. So one, Faith, if you go on my channel on desktop and type in interview, there's a couple of questions, or there's a couple of videos. One I did with someone else, and then at least one that I did on my own that's going to really run you through this. For folks that come from outside of education, you have to, I think it's thinking about all the things you've done up until now as cross-training for this moment. So it's not that those things didn't teach you, or that you don't know how to teach or whatever. It's especially that last position, or what you studied for, what were you trained in that would help you to do better as a teacher. I've said this often, the books that have had the most impact on my teaching have, with the exception of Rafe Esquith's books, have all been business books, like marketing, books, books about customer service, books about running businesses. I have had more of an impact on my teaching than anything I ever read about teaching. Because especially when I started, I feel like most books that were about teaching were from folks that like didn't teach, or they taught for like a hot minute and then they didn't teach anymore, or they wrote a book that was specific to theirs. Like there was nothing, I couldn't find anything that helped me being who I am and where I come from to teach in the neighborhoods that I was teaching in. That stuff just didn't exist at that time. So I started making YouTube videos about it.
But I think you wrote a book.
Yeah, because I wrote the book that I wish existed when I started teaching. That being said, I think that's how I would kind of go into it. I think the other thing is, it can feel like a duh moment, but telling schools that I really like, what are you really there for? If you really feel in your soul that you were meant for teaching, that you want to teach, that you desire to help kids be their best, whatever that is, it is making that very clear, like saying it out loud. Same way, the reason that I tell kids, like on the first day of school, that you have to tell them that you want to be there, that you love teaching, that you're so glad that they're in your class. We might think kids would think that, but I've never had a teacher tell me that in my life. And as long as I was a teacher, I never heard about anybody else doing that in the beginning of the year. I was the only one. And I think it's not that I'm remotely even better than anyone. It's that I just think it's such an easy win, and it's a missed opportunity to not do that. So that's letting the school know that. And then you'll get a lot of other answers from those other 2 videos that I made as well.
It's often, I think, the reason that you do that is because you remember what it's like, and then you remember, like, nobody ever says that to you. I'm sure that you had teachers that were there because they cared and they loved, like they felt called to teaching children, or whatever their reason or their why was. You so often teachers never actually communicate that. Or like, you did so many different trainings at Marley's school with teachers, and it was like, I love that student. They're a great student. They like are the reason why I teach. And you would say, like, well, did you ever tell that student that? And they were like, no. And it's like, it is such a missed opportunity and such an easy win. It's like, if you just tell students, teachers, or schools, or whatever those things,
if you don't, like, not sharing care is like not giving someone a gift. It's like having a gift and being like, oh, I have this great gift for you, but like you don't ever give it to them. So don't be nervous about that. Tell people. And like when I tell kids I want this to be the best class it could possibly be, maybe it's not. Maybe this class isn't that good because there's no chemistry here, or because I have too many students that are a problem in there, or because of 100 different reasons. But it doesn't mean that I don't want it to be, especially from day one. I want it to be great.
Yeah. Okay. Budget Rebel is up next, asking, how has it been since you left the Philly school?
So, the crazy thing is we had 6, I've said this 100 times, 6 principals in 3 years in Philly. When I left, apparently that principal that I had got fired, and the whole administrative team has been fired. The assistant principal that was there when I left fired, that principal fired, the head of curriculum fired. And so it's all new people in there now. I think there's 2 teachers left from when I was in West Philly. I would say overall, it has been incredible, but that mostly is because I'm under no false assumption that this is the work that God has me doing in this season of my life. And if I'm called by the Bible to live in perpetual joy, that's what I try to do. So it's been great, but that's also because I still get to do the work, right? Like I'm still in schools on the regular. I am, like I said, I'm going to start subbing this week at my kids' school. I'm still doing that work all the time. But, when folks ask me about it, it's like the name of the school's still there. there's a handful of students that still go there, but it's the school itself. The school that I taught at is no longer exists in Philadelphia. So even like if I went back there, I would know 2 people that still work there, and that's it. So it's like things have been incredible. I live a very blessed life. I'll say that.
Okay.
It's even when I taught, it just feels like such a blessing, because even when it's hard, to know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, even if it's not easy, is such a gift that I think we take for granted a lot of times, because there's so many folks out there that aren't doing or can't figure out or don't know what they are supposed to be doing, or is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And so, yeah, I just think
I think it's a gift, but you have to focus on it. You have to remind yourself that constantly.
Yes.
And I think that you do a really good job of doing that. Especially when it gets hard and when it's difficult, like that is something that you constantly remind yourself. And if you're not focusing on that, you're going to focus on the negative. You're going to focus on what's hard and
focus on the
difficult.
lack,
Yeah, or the lack. And so I think that makes a huge difference. It's a reminder. It's reminding yourself that you have to focus on that, and that itself isn't a gift. And that makes other things like kind of balance out.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick is up next asking, new to our school, a teacher is acting passive aggressive towards me and I hear things through the grapevine. How would you approach this situation?
So
that's a great question.
Nick, there are, all right. So the kind version of me, Nick, would, I guess the kind version and the Philly version would do the same thing with a little bit of different tone in my voice. I would address the situation. I would ask, I would say, so what I'm going to go for is offense without making them feel like they have to put up defense right away. And say, hey, I want to talk to you because this is what I'm noticing, or this is what I think that I'm seeing lately. And here's the thing. Kids come and go in this job, right? We could focus all of our time and energy and effort on kids, which, I mean, education is only about students, but the people you work with, there's a chance that you're going to work with people for a very long time. And so not getting along with someone, it just mixes up the culture of the school. And then when kids come in, it's like this divided culture. And I don't want that. So even people I haven't particularly liked, I've tried to find a way to connect with them. Now, here's what I love about this. It's having that difficult conversation. And what that person is going to see is that when Mr. Grimes when I say stuff, it will get back to him. He's going to address it. And that becomes awkward for them, right? Because now it's like someone was shining like a light at you that you didn't want, like someone's like glaring you in the eye with something and you picked up a mirror and shined it back at them. It's like, oh wait, it comes back. So letting them know that, because we teach people to treat us the way we want to be treated. So teach them what's going to happen if you talk about me. I'm going to come back and have a word with you. Now, that's 1. 2, if it happens again, this is someone I don't get down with. I don't know that I've ever not gotten along with someone and then made amends to the degree which I became like friends with them. I don't think that's ever happened like as a teacher.
Nope.
And then I just focus on being great at my job, right? That's what I'm there for. I think that there's forces out there that try to distract you from what you're doing, trying to get you on your defense, have you thinking twice about what you're supposed to be doing, right? And I'm not about that. I don't want that. Even if it's like, right, we have a horrible tendency to self-sabotage ourselves, right? Self-sabotage ourselves. Good job. So it is, I think it's to your benefit to focus on you, focus on the students. Hell with that teacher. Who gives a crap what they think? But I want them to know that you're not just going to do it and there's no consequences. I'm going to say something about it. And so that's where I would go with it. I've never gone to like, you could go to human resources with that. I've never taken that path before, but I do want the teacher to know how I feel about that. And look, here's the other thing. Even if they say no, even if they say they're not doing it, like I've had people do that. I've had folks, I had a principal one time who was very passive aggressive with me. I called them on it. They said that wasn't happening. I was seeing it wrong, that they had no issue with me, but it was like so glaringly obvious that I just was like, all right, well, at least you know that I know. And I don't bang with you anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, that tactic is called like close. Just for those of you who don't know, it's called closing the loop.
Yeah.
So when you hear somebody talk about you or something, instead of like letting it go, it can fester. It can just cause a lot of like,
Or it grows,
Yeah,
becomes
right.
worse.
right. Or like they think that they got away with it and they can keep trash talking or whatever the situation may be, which I think is really important, especially in a school situation where you have like so many people. It's going to that person and saying, like, hey, just so you know, like, this is what I'm hearing. Like, I'm not sure if you said it or not, but this is what's going around that's coming out of your mouth. Like, whether you said this exactly kind of a thing or not, but this is what's happening. And I
Yeah.
hope that you wouldn't talk about me like that. Like, and then it's like, yeah, I would, if it were me, I would restate, like, I'm here for the kids. I'm not trying to be teacher of the year or whatever the situation is for you specifically, but it's saying, like, no, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm here, or this is why I would do that, or this is why I would behave that way, or this is why I made that decision. It's giving a little context for that person. And a lot of times that is so disarming for the other person that they either go, oh, well, I didn't know that this is the why behind you did something,
Yeah.
or it just cuts it off. They just go,
Yeah.
man, like, if I'm going to say something, it's going to get back to so and so, and then they're going to come and say something to me. Like, I don't even want to deal with all of that. So then that just nips it in the bud instead of letting it fester.
I can sometimes almost laugh about it too.
But I just want to say, you have to go, I'm not a very controlled, like, I get heated and I get sassy and my smart side starts coming out. And so that's generally like, you have to kind of like prepare yourself to go into that conversation. So that doesn't happen. Cause it could go bad if you don't. We've had those situations too, and we've learned from those as well.
Which is why I choose to just kind of like have a half smile on my face about things, because it's so absurd to me that there are folks that are in charge of raising up the next generation and they act worse than the kids. Like, what? I had someone ask me about something like that yesterday after the PD that I led, and it's like, I just had to kind of laugh and just say, isn't it remarkable how adults who are in charge of children can act worse than the kids?
True for adults in the whole world. You see it everywhere, like with people who can't control their emotions or behaviors, or they like lash out at things, or they get so mad over other people's viewpoints. Like elections do that. Or I mean, right? Like, look at how many people are different, have different opposing views, and they like hate on each other for it. And it's like, we can't
But
be
if your kid did that, I don't know. That's a whole nother thing.
You would address it. You would address their behavior, hopefully, if you're an active
So
parent.
I think don't let people talk about you. Go to the source. Have the conversation in a cool way. And that's it. Let them know that.
And know that's not your person to hang with. You don't bang with that person. Like,
no. Thank God you found out now.
Yeah. Okay. Maisha is up next asking, why do you feel that teachers don't share those opportunities of appreciation with students outside of the fear of it being misunderstood?
I think it's also, they just assume that kids know. Sometimes it's like, well, of course they know that I care about them. But that's like, Maisha, that to me, that's like, and maybe some of this is my own stuff, right? Like, I grew up in a house where my dad died when I was 4. I had a stepfather that never told me he loved me. But when I would call him, I'm a kid, but I'm still going to call him on it. Maybe that's just in my blood, calling people and stuff. But he would say, well, how do you not know that I love you? Right? Like, it was like I don't have to say. It reminds me of that scene from Fences with Denzel Washington. But it's like, no, people do not benefit from the care you feel. They benefit from the care you share. So I want to make it abundantly clear, but I think some of it's misunderstood. Some of it is they're nervous that it won't be reciprocated. Some of it is no one else does this, right? Like, so
It's weird.
I showed a picture. I used to have a picture on my presentation when I do talks of me shaking kids' hands when they come in the door, and now I have this awkward picture of me hugging a kid. It's the most awkward hug ever, but it gets a laugh. And I was telling folks, like, just because I do that doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because I say love to kids doesn't mean you have to do it. It's not for everyone, but it is finding your way. But it has to be a way. It can't just be, well, I think about it or I feel it, or they should know. No, they shouldn't, because they're kids. So tell people, I don't just hope my wife gets it that I love her.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I don't think it's relegated just to kids. Like, I think it's more important for kids. But I think that everybody benefits from being told that, like, anything, whether exactly.
Like, you're doing a great job.
Right. Everybody wants a pat on the back. Everybody wants to be appreciated, wants to know that they're doing a good job or loved. Nobody just goes, yeah, if you never told me you loved me, like, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
going to stop. We'll do an experiment.
No, that's not.
That's how it goes.
I think we're good. We learned that lesson already.
Oh, we did?
Well, I meant, like, your dad,
Oh, yeah.
like, you got that one already. We got that on lock.
Yeah. And, but that's, to that end, Maisha, it's like some of who we are in school is because of what we did. Like, my kids benefit from me having a terrible stepdad, right? Mm-hmm. I won't even say terrible, right? It was just not what I wanted, I think. When I think back, it was not terrible, probably at all, but it
could have been worse. I mean,
100% worse.
Beat you and all kinds of things.
My kids benefit from that because I became the dad I wanted. Like, the stuff I do, which is so funny when my kids don't like it, when they're like, could you just, like, chill? And I'm like, oh, really? Because I want it. I want someone to dance at 7 a.m. Why is that bad?
Okay.
You told me this morning it was too early to sing.
I told you that.
What?
Okay, Summer Hayward is up. Question. I'm in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
With the current climate, like federal state vouchers, it feels like public ed is on the chopping block. I'm supposed to start grad school in January, but now I'm worried it's a bad move. Advice. Before you answer this, did you hear Trump's thing about public ed? How he was like, we're going to dismantle, like, has done this since he's president-elect.
Yes. But as we were talking about today, I've heard politicians in general say a lot of things, and then it's like, then the election happens, and it's like, does that actually happen?
Yeah.
I don't know. Summer, I would say, what is in your gut to do, it's going to work. Like, so public education is not going anywhere, right? It's too much of a juggernaut. Will it change? Maybe. In what ways? I don't know. I don't see a world, and look, I don't have a crystal ball here or something like that. It would be awesome if I did, but I don't see a world where folks that are educated and passionate and really good at what they do don't get to keep doing what they're doing. So if you're going to go get your master's so that you can do a better job at the work you're doing, by all means, no one can take that knowledge away from you. Now, I don't know what jobs will look like over the next 4 years. I have no idea. I know there's a lot of conversation around the world of education. My job is to show up and care for kids. Sometimes I have to disassociate myself from a large degree of what's happening in the world because that's my mission I'm on, right? There's a lot broken in the world. There's a lot of things going on. The best I can do sometimes is pick up trash in front of my own house, make sure I'm raising my kids right, make sure that I am doing what God tells me. And for me, that is helping teachers so they can help students to the best of my ability. And I'm just going to find a way to do that no matter who's in office, no matter what someone tells me. Now I realize that like I don't live in like, North Korea or something like that. That would be different. But I would play it as it comes. That's my intuition is any big change that's coming is I'm just going to navigate it as it comes. But I'm on my path, right? And nothing's going to get me off my path because this is what I'm built to do. And kids are going to get the best of me come hell or high water. I don't care who's in office or who's doing what. That's I'm going to show up and do my work. And that goes for either side. Like no matter who got voted in.
Asher is up next asking, hi, first year teacher here with a more laid back and mellow style. I have a co-teacher.
I like that you said it like you were like laid back and mellow style. Oh yeah.
I have a co-teacher who yells at students often and has standoffs over behavior. Advice on how to navigate this.
Asher, I'll tell you that
as a co-teacher, that's hard.
I have lived this.
Perfect. So you have good advice.
I don't know if I have good advice. I have advice. I've done a lot of things. I've had a lot of terrible co-teachers. I've had a lot of terrible aides. And it becomes like you're in a bad marriage where like one parent says one thing and the other parent says the other thing, and it's tough. To me, let me just say, whether you're laid back and mellow or you're just not being nuts is kind of the same thing. When you having a standoff with a student is never a good idea. No one wins. That's a flex on the teacher's behalf, right? Like, what are you trying to prove? You're a grown up that has a all over a kid? Like, whatever. Like, age yourself. Like, become more responsible. To me, I would probably talk to, I used to go and talk to someone in my school first because I knew that like, I didn't want to figure it out with this person. This is like, you just put vinegar and water together in a classroom, or baking soda and vinegar, or baking powder, something that explodes together. It's just, these things don't fit. So here's what I did. I would go and speak to someone. So first I would try and work it out with that person. I would say, I'm noticing that you're getting really aggravated with the students sometimes. I'm trying to figure out how we can cohabitate this scenario, or if you just want me to kind of deal with that kid. And that's worked sometimes. When I had one co-teacher, Ed Fines, and Ed Fines, there were certain kids in the class that I would deal with and certain kids that he would deal with. Like, he had a heart for certain kids that just drove me crazy. And it was a way for us to kind of figure that out. I think it's also important to have really tight classroom management structure so that when things are going wrong, there's never a battle. It's no, but if this happens, then this is the consequence for that. The other thing is, I think, talking to someone. And then what I did eventually was I had people that were so bad that I ended up trying to find a workaround. Is there another co-teacher in the building that is a better fit for my class? And can I figure out a way to get the schedule changed that they can come into my class? And I have done that a couple of times where, I'm working with someone one year and then they leave and then they hire someone that sucks. And I'm like, there's no way this is happening. And then I figure out like, all right, who else is out here? Oh, that person. And then I figure out why it's a good idea for them to come and teach in my class. And it's so much better. But it is, that's where I would go with it. I would make it sort of like clinical in going to someone and having that conversation. Because otherwise you just have to kind of weather it. I think where things come to a head is kids end up getting in trouble. And then what you're going to have to do is, and this is what I had to do. I shouldn't say this is what you're going to have to do. This is what I did. I ended up going in some of those meetings and speaking on the behalf of the student and letting them know, like, nope, they didn't do that, or it wasn't that bad, or whatever. Or talking to those kids on the side and saying, like, listen, when Mr. Phillips is losing it in there, you're taking the bait. you have to like, so if we want something to be done about the teacher, we have to teach our kids to really either tough it out or how they should best deal with it. Like maybe perhaps you should go to your mom and have a conversation about that you're having a problem with this teacher. Like help students to figure out next steps of how they should do it. Can they go to the principal? Can they go to a parent? Can they go to a guidance counselor and let them know? And then it's going to force the conversation between these higher ups in your school and that teacher and the student and hopefully a parent. So it's teaching the kid to kind of deal with it as well. That's probably the best piece of advice I could give. And I've seen that work tremendously because moms didn't even know about it. And now they're heated and they know it had nothing to do with me. And they're gunning for someone. And the reason it's good that it had nothing to do with me also is because now that kid can still show up to class and learn. They're not just giving up on the class. I can't stand that.
Up next is Jacob asking, you've talked about this before, but could you elaborate on how you address a class whose behavior keeps them from doing fun things you are able to do with other classes? Before you answer that, he also said the class is just way too talkative to the point where we can't even get the actual work done, let alone do a fun activity.
Jacob, I forget what grade you teach. I know you've told me before, but you know, I think so. At my best, because I've had these classes and it's first, I think, Jacob, it's armoring myself. Kevin Hart has a really great part in one of his books.
He's 9th grade English.
Okay. So Kevin Hart, I'm just trying to figure out like the level of maturity that we're dealing with. Kevin Hart has a part in his book where he talks about this idea of he has like, I think it's like a bubble or a force field around him. And he knows when he's going in a particular situation that could be tumultuous, that this exists on the outside of him. So none of that stuff that people are trying to throw at him is ever hitting him. It bounces off. And that's a really good reminder of perhaps going into that class and knowing that I'm not taking this personal. I'm not letting this get on me. I'm not letting this affect my mindset. I need to go in here at the best version of myself so I can deal with things. And the other thing is, these are the classes where I like live and die by the schedule and the timer. So you come in the class, if you're not sitting in a seat, and I have tons of policies, procedures, and routines for these classes that I really, really stick to and try not to veer away from, because I know that kids are going to be a pain. So when you come in, you shake my hand, you sit right in your seat. You're not walking around. You don't have to get anything from anywhere. I have a student that I trust or myself that are handing out the things that you need in your class. So there's never a reason for you to get out of your seat. I then have a pre-class that lasts about 5 minutes. I have a timer on the board. At the end of that time on the board, if you're not finished, I collect your paper. Unless this is a student that has not even just the IEP. Because if you were choosing not to do work because you're choosing to talk to other people, I don't care what the IEP says. It wasn't that you were doing the work and you didn't grasp it and you need extra time. Kids that need extra time, it's different because took a little bit longer for them to get started because they were trying to think of an answer. They write slow. They have a slower processing speed, whatever that is. That's different. Everyone else, I'm collecting that stuff immediately. I'm then transitioning into my next activity that I'm going to do. You have this much time to get ready, and then I am starting. I'm not waiting for you. So class is moving at a clip. It is not fun. I don't try to make it fun. I also have tried to do, Jacob, if I have some kids in that class that are great and this really sucks for them, I try to look for them. Also, I think we have a tendency to just notice the kids that are being that are acting up and are acting a fool in your class and not noticing the kids that are good. I've also tried to see if those kids could go to another class of mine. I've actually had kids transferred out of one class and into another because I know they're awesome. And if they were if you were my 5th period instead of my 8th period, it would crush. And sometimes that works out. Sometimes it's just a simple flip of one class for another, sometimes it doesn't work with their schedule. The other thing, but I build deep relationships with those students. So even if they have to stay in that class, they know that, like, man, I'm sorry, this sucks, but you're great. So don't smile. Kyle was in one of those classes where they were horrible. And I had a really hard time for like 3/4 of the year. It finally came around at the end. 3/4 of the year or so, it was horrible. And Kyle was stuck in there, and he was such a good dude, and it really just sucked. And then I think, don't just live in that every day. That's also where I use things like my Friday reflections, where I am sending stuff home every week so parents know where their student is in the class. And then I'm making sure that for a lot of kids, I'm communicating home and saying, like, look, these are the behaviors I'm seeing in class. That's one thing. It's affecting your student's grade. And so they are not getting the grades that they need, but because they're constantly off tests or constantly doing other stuff. I used to not call home or contact home because it made me feel dumb, or I don't know. I felt like kids were old enough. They're not old enough. They're 14 and 15 years old. They're absolutely not old enough. And while you are living at home, you are not fully responsible for yourself. So I am going to call home. And if that bothers you, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, my goal is to have you be successful. You're not being successful on your own right now. You need to maybe have your feet to the fire a little bit and have home, whether it's take away your PlayStation, or it's confiscate your phone, or it's have just a really serious talk about how they're disappointed in your behavior and you know better. I'm all for it, because if that's going to help you to do better, then I want that conversation to happen with you. And then it's constantly like writing kids up. It's constantly writing things, like not even just getting kids detentions. I'm not into detentions. I think they're stupid, but traditional ones anyway. It is keeping a written log and then making sure I'm communicating, because the worst thing not the worst thing that can happen, but I really can't stand when I get to the end of a quarter or a year and a kid has been acting horrific, and then somehow, some way, someone finds a way or a reason to pass them when they didn't earn it. Because passing a class is about mastery of content. If you don't have mastery of content because you're screwing around all the time, then you shouldn't go to the next class. And so it's really, but how do we get in front of that? It's contacting home. It's keeping a very strict classroom. And by strict, I mean, like, these are the repercussions when you do something. I say what I mean. Like, I'm all about my integrity. If I say that you're not allowed to talk when I'm talking, then there's no talking when I'm talking. If I say that there's no cell phones out, and if I see one, then this is what's going to happen, then that's 100% what's going to happen, no matter what you say. It's doing that. And then reminding myself that this is a period a day. That if I teach 5 periods a day, I have 4 that I really like, or some that I really like, some that are okay. This is my 1 period a day that I'm grinding it out, but I'm trying to still mold it into something eventually.
That's exhausting. All the more reason, Jacob, to take care of you when you're off. Because those classes, I'm like, gosh, that's not fun. Like, just writing kids up and saying the same thing over and over. Like, that's exhausting. Yeah.
The thing, you know what, with regards to self-care, so one of the sessions I did in New York yesterday, and I don't get to do this one as much. I wish I did. It's called Reignite Your Passion. Is when you're doing stuff for yourself, I find that it's not just doing things that are nice. It's doing things that get you out of your head. So I used to find that sometimes I would go to these float tanks where it was like, it's like a bunch of salt in water, and you lay
magnesium
in this little room, kind of,
like
where you're just floating in water in the dark. And I meditate a lot, so it was easy to meditate. But those activities, sometimes those classes are just running in your head, instead of doing something like that demands your attention. So maybe it's rock climbing, maybe it's going to the gun range. We live in the Southwest now, so sometimes it's go to the gun range.
Which
it's
you've never
doing a
been
thing
to.
that you need your attention on, and you can't wander. So sometimes a massage isn't the best thing. A facial is not the best thing. Getting your nails done is not the best thing, because you can still do that.
It's relaxing, and it gives it a lot of time to think.
What's going to slingshot you out of that mindset and somewhere else, allowing your brain to rest in that way so you can do the work you need to do.
And Jacob, you have kids, man.
Well, that baby's like 15 years old now.
I know.
I remember one day he told us how old she was, and I was like,
playing with kids is a really great way too. Like I know that we've had like our own fights or whatever, and then if we had to, like, our kids were like, let's play a game together as a family, it was like, okay, and you went into it kind of,
as long as your mother's not playing with us.
and then
she cheats anyway.
Or even this, right? We definitely had fights before we have come on Sunday Night Teacher Show.
Some strong disagreements. And then it's like, hey, welcome back to Sunday Night Teacher
And we have to like be a team, but that pulls us out of that, and then the thing is over.
But like, it demands your attention.
It does. But so
and
like I think kids can be a great way
mistake.
to do that, even if it's just as simple as playing a game with your kids. Yeah. They require your attention. Okay. Someone over on Facebook has a question asking, I have 5 preps a day, self-contained. This is super hard. I also have 4 students who do the state alternative testing. Last year, it took about 30 hours each, 3 kids. How can I streamline teaching? Middle school teacher with kids on K to almost grade level academically. There's so much paperwork to do also. I love my kids and my job, but it's a lot.
So this is a great question.
It's kind of crazy that they expect this person to do this much as part of it.
So part of what we're going to talk about is going to deal with that.
Wow.
One thing you're going to do, Mr. and Mrs. User, is one, you're going to let the school know that this is not sustainable, that I'm happy to do, I'll do the 5 preps. I need to have less. It's too much work and you can't do anything well. It's like you're basically being the Cheesecake Factory of education, right? The Cheesecake Factory does, know what they do well? Cheesecake. And some of you love Cheesecake Factory, and that's fine. But anywhere that I can get a grilled cheese and lasagna is not a place that does either one particularly well. So I want to do great things. I need to have less preps. There's such a teacher shortage right now, and they teach science too, right? Is that what they said? Or am I making that up in my head? I think I just made that part up. You teach science. There's such a teacher shortage. You're not going to lose your job, so don't even worry about it. But let them know what you need. I would then say no to everything else. If the school tried to get me to chaperone the dance, to pick up an extra period during the day because they don't have a sub, whatever it is, my answer is no to everything. I'd love to be able, here's my answer. I'd love to be able to do that, but right now I have these 5 preps and I'm at capacity. I can't do anything else. And then that's it. Then I just end the conversation. I don't go, would it be all right if I didn't because I have 5 preps? No. I thank you so much for asking me, but I'm at capacity right now with the work that I'm doing. The end. I can't do it anymore. If you pour any more into me, it's just going to start leaking out of my ears. Then I try to, when I've had multiple classes, so the most I've ever had, I've had 4 preps in a year. I try to make those preps, or I try to make those, all 4 of those classes have some similarities in them. So maybe it's the flow. Maybe it's some years I've used the same vocab because I used to pull from SAT vocab, not regular vocab. And so like wasn't vocab from just the book because that moves too fast anyway. So I would use the same SAT words because these kids weren't getting them from anywhere else. So my 9th grade class, my 10th grade class, and my 12th grade class for English all had the same vocab. So each Monday I didn't have to come up with a ton of different sides. It was just enough for one class that I was going to replicate. It is, how can you get some of the work you're doing from somewhere else? Whether you are, ready for this, using Chat GPT to come up with writing prompts or study questions or whatever. There's another, I'm just going to tell you who they are, even though I'm not particularly working with them yet, because I think it's interesting. It's worth checking out. I don't know if it costs money or not. So I'm trying to still figure out if I'm going to work with this company. There's a brand called Study Fetch that I think has really interesting stuff. Their software makes tests for you. So you can basically say, here's what I'm teaching. It will give you study guides. It will give you tests. It will create quizzes. It will create review packages, all kinds of stuff for you. How can you get some of what you need to do from somewhere else without having to do it yourself? How do I get more things off my plate? I cannot do what I'm really good at, which is building relationships with students and making things engaging. And also, like, here's the thing. If I'm really good at whittling wood, I can't be out there also chopping down trees. That's not my thing. I need to get someone else to chop down the tree, cut it in littler parts, and then deliver it to my house so I can do the thing I'm good at, which is whittling.
Hmm.
And I'm not good at whittling. I don't know anyone who does whittle, but it sounds fun. I just like saying whittle. It is, gosh, ADD. It just takes you on adventures sometimes that you didn't ask for and you didn't see coming. So how do I get more things off my plate? The other thing is you need to talk to the special education department about this whole 30 hours and kids taking tests. I've had that happen before. Richard,
I remember.
I was at school it was the holiday party. Everyone's at the holiday party. Where am I? Sitting in the school for like 6 hours with this kid going over this test because he wanted to do a good job so bad. And it's pushing back. It's like, because that's not good for students either, right? There's no way that 30 hours doing a thing is good for a student's mind. Pushing back on some of those things as well. So I think those handful of things is where I would kind of start and then kind of see where it goes from there.
Okay. We have 2 more questions I would like to get to.
Get to it.
The Teaching Romance is up asking, is it better to address or ignore behavior? Some behavior is done because they want the attention. So giving them the attention by addressing sounds like caving in.
It's both. You have to feel it out. Follow your intuition. I think one of the things I've learned, not just as an educator, but as a parent, is that your intuition is incredibly strong. And if you feel like it's someone, here's what I don't buy into. A lot of teachers I've worked with ignore behaviors because they're scared of the kid, or they're scared of their parents, or they're scared of what the kid's going to tell administration, or that administration's going to say something to you, or, oh my gosh, like their parent works here, or they're a big donor to the school. We can't say anything to them. I could care less about any of that. I will not turn away my attention because of fear. But if a kid is a black hole of attention, I have ignored it a million times because I know what they're trying to do. Or when I address it, I'm particularly cold about it, sort of in like a stoic way, where it's, Aaron, nope, Aaron, you're listening to me right now because I'm talking. We are not doing that. If you do it again, this is what's about to happen. Or when I talk about like those 3 questions, like, Aaron, are you off task again? Aaron, are you refusing to do work? All right, Aaron, here's what the email is going to sound like when I send it home. You choose your own adventure. You choose how this email ends. It's having those kinds of conversations in a not like, I'm not trying to vibe with you. It's like, I'm digging into my deepest version of Ron Swanson when I'm dealing with it because I don't want my emotions to even be picked up. Because a lot of times that's what kids are going for too, is to try and get my emotions. So I can be super fun and I'm razzle dazzling kids all over the place. And then with that particular student, it's like, Aaron, are we doing that again? We're not allowed to do that. If you do it again, I'm going to have to send you to the office, or I'm going to have to contact home, or I'm going to have to whatever. That's how I handle that.
All right.
Listen to your intuition, though. It will teach you well. Teaching Romance, I appreciate you being on here all the time too. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, but I see you, and you ask really good questions. Thank you so much.
Victoria is up next saying, hi, I'm new here. Thanks for everything you do. I was wondering, how would you approach taking over a class mid-year?
Do I have a video? I might.
I don't think you do.
I should. It's on the list somewhere. Anyway, I
guess what this week's video is going to be.
Yeah. Well, I already have this video filmed, so it will not. But it
coming up. Yeah. Coming soon.
All right. I'm really trying to think of this fully because I think it's such a good question and so many people deal with it. I would go in. I would do a little digging. I want to know what was happening in there before I got there. Because you're going to deal with one of 2 situations potentially. what I've seen the most is that people are either dealing with someone who was horrendous, no classroom management, got burned out, left, right? And the kids have just been living free all year. It's Lord of the Flies in that classroom. Or someone that was loved and took early retirement, or something happened, or whatever. Either way, it's not easy. It's very seldom like even like a amicable transition of power or something like that. So I want to find out what I'm walking into, and then regardless of what it was, this is how I'd run my class. This is how we're doing it this year. This is how this is going to happen. This is how this is going to work. I want kids to know from the first day, gosh, I'm sorry that I'm only getting to you halfway through the year or late in the year, but I am thrilled to have this job. I'm thrilled to be teaching this class. I love this subject matter, and I want to make this the best it could possibly be. And then I would do, like I talk about in my boot camps, and I have other videos online too that talk about things like, just look at any of the videos that are like how I would start a year. I would just do the same thing. I'd still do my Life Odyssey project. I would still not start with rules. I'd still have a fun syllabus. I'd still do a QMI sheet. I'd still reach out to parents, let them know who you are, where that you're there, and then ask my 3 questions that I ask to all parents through an email. I'd still run it the same. And then the thing I guard myself against is against kids saying, but the last teacher didn't do this. But so those grades still count, but I'm here for y'all. And I want to make this the best it can possibly be. So, and I'm not that teacher. So whether they were beloved or they were hated, I'm not them. And I'm here for you. And then I would try to build relationships as quickly as possible, which is why I think the Life Odyssey is crucial. And I think that getting, even though you're super busy, out of the classroom as much as possible into places where students are, because we gravitate towards the things we're the most familiar with. That you're new, but it doesn't take long to not be new anymore. Give it a week or 2 of kids seeing you, of you meaningfully trying to connect with students and stuff like that, becoming a part of the culture of the school, and you can make that transition very, very quickly. Because I think most teachers are not out there trying. They might be standing at their door. They might even be saying hi to kids, but they're not doing with a level of authenticity that if you go in and with excitement, no matter what anyone else thinks, right? Own your own weird, own your own version of you, be authentically who you are, and showing up. And I'm in there kicking it with kids and building those connections. That's all that stuff only benefits you. And let us know if you need any, show back up and let us know if you have any particular issues in the classroom or with the school, and we can help you out with it.
Okay. Do you want to answer one more?
Yeah, do it.
Because I hate leaving people.
I hate leaving questions.
Jennifer is saying, I'm frustrated with apathetic students who don't seem to care no matter how many lab engagement strategies or hands-on activities I try. I'm feeling very frustrated and I don't know what else to do.
I would ask them. So 1, Jennifer, good for you for trying stuff. What I want to look at is a couple of things. 1, like I said earlier, are there kids that do like it? Are there kids that this is winning with, right? That's not going to just change things, but it helps me to shift my perspective at how I'm looking at it. Instead of no one does well, which might be the truth. I've had those classes. But are there some that are getting down with it, that are trying, that do like what we're doing? I want to look for that because it's going to help my own mental space. The second thing is, I think school is incredibly boring, and sometimes kids don't even know how to engage with fun. They think that it's a free for all, right? And so that's something to be mindful of too, is like, how am I going to do this with this group, or can I do this with this group? Apathy is sometimes it's a part of being a teenager. I don't know what kids are coming from. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what their struggles are in their life or in their mind. But it's like, sometimes we do stuff with our kids and it's the most fun thing ever. And there's like, oh, do we have to go? What? Do you have to go to the hot air balloon festival in Albuquerque? Yes, because it is like remarkable. And they're just like, okay, I guess. What time are we going to be home? What? Like, or the year, our kids hate this story. There was a Fortnite update, but we were going out to get a Christmas tree, and we used to, back in Jersey, we used to go like cut down our own Christmas tree. You would have thought we were dragging them to the library. They were just like, what? Oh. And so I have to separate from myself and know that sometimes this is your hormones speaking, and that, when you're an adult, you won't do this anymore, hopefully. The other thing is, I think, Jen, is really looking at, look, one of the things I'm just thinking about presentations because I gave one yesterday, but the greatest hitter of all time in Major League Baseball, right? The player that got the most hits of all time is Pete Rose from the Philadelphia Phillies. He had like over 4,000 hits in his career. At bats, he had over 14,000. More than half the time, he did not get a hit. He's still the greatest of all time. I love that story for a couple of reasons. One, it's because he also had 2,000 more at bats than number 2 in line. What that says to me is, just because things aren't going right doesn't mean don't keep trying stuff. Keep trying stuff and see what does work. Then save those things so that next year or the next time you know what does work. Things that don't work, rework them. The last thing I would say is ask your students when you go in on Tuesday, look, gang, we've done all, and not passive aggressively, or I try to take aggravation out of it. It's more like befuddled. I go into this with, I'm sort of confused because here's all these things I keep trying to do in class, but these are the behaviors I keep getting. These are the looks on faces. This is the like no one's turning in work. But what I'm trying to do is not just give you a book and give you questions and you answer them or something like that and then give you a test. That sucks and it's not learning. I want to do something more and have a class that actually you look forward to, but I'm having a hard time doing it because, like I said, this is what I'm seeing. What should we do? Or what am I missing? Why is this suck so bad for you? Or you act like it sucks so bad. And then let that silence linger. Do not stop talking. I asked a question. I'm giving you time to process, and I'm having a conversation about it. If someone's acting a fool while you're trying to have this conversation, I just send them out of class because I'm really trying to get to the bottom of this. And those have been some of my most impactful conversations I've ever had with students. Because then what happens is if you get some ideas from kids, when you start to do them, you go in the class and you let them know, Terry, this is actually what we're doing tomorrow is something Terry brought up when we had that conversation last week. And we're going to try this in class and then do it in class. So you're helping kids to be a part of what you're doing and looking for clues. They're not going to give you a whole idea. No one's going to write your lesson plan, right? But they'll give you clues about access points. And then as time goes on, you're collecting all of these access points, all these clues, all these ideas, all things that work. And that starts building into something. And at the end of it, you end up in the Hall of Fame because even though less than half the time you were getting a hit and getting on base.
Yeah, man, teenage apathy is like a real thing.
It is.
They just, we have 2 of them. And I remember when our first went through that at like 15, which is freshman kind of age. And I remember being like,
everything was
everything was like, everything. And
time for dinner. Like,
I know.
What? Like
we're pretty good parents. Like,
no, we're awesome parents.
But so even our kids go through that, which shows to me that like it's just a natural part. Like our daughter's 15 and she's right there.
No. And the funniest thing was when Brody kind of came through the other side of that, he's now 17, and Marley started going through it. Brody was like, why does Mar hate everything?
I know.
Like he didn't even remember going through it, right? It is a thing that we have to live through, but you have to learn how to deal with that because you're going to go back to teaching that same grade. And I'm not trying to make you quit. You're going to go back to teaching that same grade over and over and over again.
Same behavior is going to be there
in certain years. There's certain. I remember the time I started a fire in the parking lot with a magnifying glass. I had 2 kids that were like, When are we going inside? Oh my gosh, it's so hot out. Bro, what? I literally just made a fire. This is not even legal. And you're like, whatever. What? Times I've had DJs come, anything I've ever done, I've had a kid that was like, when are we going home? When are you going? You should just go home now. Stop coming to school.
That is just typical teen behavior, which it sucks, but
yeah, it is what it is.
Oof, I've learned that.
So, gosh. Well, look, gang, that's all we have time for today. We will be back next week. Right?
Yes.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll be back.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for everything, gang. Look, if your school needs someone to speak to, there's PDs going on all year. I want to shout out my girl, Wendy Chapman, for getting me that gig yesterday in New York. Hopefully she's getting me another gig in New York. I'll be back there again. Let me know. Reach out. If you have no idea how to do it or what the steps are, reach out. Hit me up in the email.
There's a QR code that's going to show up on your screen. We fixed it last time someone used it and it didn't work. It should work. And it goes to a whole package that you can use to request CJ to come to your school.
Yeah.
But it's all done for you. So
that's it, gang.
Yeah, have a great week.
In America, have a great Monday off. Peace.